This video is part of the Break the Blank Page series. I'm going to show you what comes next after you break the blank page. The page that we're working on today started using crumpled brown paper bag. Here's a picture of the page beforehand. I've ripped those into strips, glued them down, and given them a coat of gesso. That was the breaking of the page. Now the texture from that brown paper reminded me of the birdhouse on this napkin. So I've removed the excess plies and now I'm just rough cutting the birdhouse. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to do the right orientation or the left facing orientation, so I'm going to cut both of those and addition it on my page. So I do the rough cut and then I come in and I do the fine work. Now I prefer not having or getting rid of as much of this excess as possible. You could leave it in, paint over top of it, cut with scissors. You do you, whatever works best for you. I love the torn edges as opposed to scissors. I find it's more organic. You don't really see it that much. Now I want to get rid of the blue that is sky because at this time I'm not sure what color my background is going to be and I didn't want that halo of blue. So my hope was to get rid of as much of it as possible. I've zoomed in here so you can see how I just work little areas at a time using my liner brush and water and then kind of picking it out. Now I'm auditioning this on several backgrounds from my Break the Blank Page series. This one has just the brown paper throughout the whole one. The other one I had stamped with gel medium. And I'm looking at the colors and the textures and what works together. So for this one, I've actually started with the napkin and then I found a background that was going to work with it. And as I start water cutting this, I get ideas that, I don't want all these flowers. I want just mainly the birdhouse. And I'm editing parts out so that it looks good on the page and the size of the page. Here I'm checking, which orientation do I want, landscape or portrait? Now, once you've cut them out, they are a little bit fragile, but I typically put them all together. I tuck them into, if I have another full napkin, and I always get 2 from NinnysNapkins, and I put them in these page protectors that I have in a binder. And I find that is a great storage. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see an eye, and I'll put a link to the Break the Blank Page 2 video, as well as the video where I show how I store my napkins. So I'm really liking the look here of the crinkling from the brown paper in the background and the birdhouse. To me, that works together. So because the birdhouse is white, I don't want to put any color first, so I'm just going to glue this down against the white. Now, napkins become very fragile when you wet them, so you have to have a very light hand. I have texture underneath that, so that's going to make that doubly important to do. Now you can see where there was little bits of that blue that I didn't cut off, and it's really standing out. It kind of gives that blue halo. So you can take your nail like you saw me doing there and just kind of grab it out, but you run the risk of taking more than you want. I'm going to show you a way to get rid of that in a minute. Here I'm just taking some of the elements from the napkin and just piecing together a composition that I like that fits my page. And again, I'm pulling off some of that blue. I don't like it. Now I'm wrapping my gel my fluid medium brush in plastic wrap because I know I'm going to be using it to put something on later and it just won't dry. Now here's the one way that I am getting rid of that blue halo from the napkin. I'm taking some white gesso with a small brush and I'm just painting that out. Now that does two things. It gets rid of any color that you don't want. It also seals the napkin along that edge. So if you're shading or doing a wash of color later, it's going to take the same as everything else on the page. You can see how I've gotten rid of that blue. Now, if you're an eagle eye, you will have realized that in the end, I'm putting blue back on. So it wouldn't have necessarily have been so bad in this circumstance, but I wasn't sure that I was going blue. At this time, I was thinking I was going to go more yellow. So I did end up going with blue, and I'm using light blue permanent, and I'm mixing it with blue gray. That was the blue that I was there. And because this has a very vintage feel, there's some gray in that birdhouse, and I wanted it to be a little more muted. So when you add gray to a paint or add a color like gray, blue gray, from this right out of the tube, it just makes it more vintage feel. And it just kind of fit the whole feel. So I'm taking the light blue permanent, the blue gray right there, as well as white gesso, and I'm applying it with a brush, with a makeup sponge, and you can see how once that paint's on there, you can really see the texture that came from that crumpled brown paper. And using three shades, the white, the light blue permanent, and the blue gray, is giving that variation to the sky and adds interest to your page. I try to avoid just putting one color. It just always looks so flat and uninteresting. So I'm adding more layers of paint, adding more gray, more white, more blue, just as till I get a look that I like. Then I'm going over the highlighted or the raised areas with the blue gray because it's the darkest color, and that's really accentuating the texture from the crumpled brown paper. And when you have texture on your background, you really do want to accentuate it. Now I wanted to add something else to the sky, and I wanted a sun. So I grabbed this Mandela stencil, and I will link this and the name of the napkin in the description box if you're interested. And I'm using Naples yellow, which matches the yellow on the bird and on those flowers from the napkin. So I'm not introducing another color. I'm using the colors that were given to me in the napkin. And when you're starting, that's a great way of helping yourself cover or choose colors. Now there's brown in the birdhouse, so I'm just adding a little bit of brown on top of the yellow. Again, I want to make this look interesting and I want all these components to work together. Now I'm taking some of that brown on the makeup sponge and just rubbing it over the highest areas. And I love how this just accentuates the texture and it makes it look like there's branches, like we're up in the tree, like where the birdhouse would be. It gives that illusion of branches. Now there's not much. This is a fairly small page. So it's a good thing to limit how many techniques you're going to do. I could have used modeling paste for that Mandela stencil, but I chose not to because I have texture already. Now with the blue-gray, I'm rubbing it on this script stencil and I'm just stamping. Now it's very, very fine, very faded, muted, but it's a little extra something, something there. I didn't want it too much in the face. This isn't my focal image, it's just a detail in the background. So now I'm taking quinacridone magenta and the Naples yellow. Again, those are the colors that were in the napkin, and a liner brush, and I'm kind of swirl painting these flowers in a very painterly effect. I'm also adding white gesso in there. I'm not cleaning the brush in between. I'm adding some flowers if I think I need an extra flower here. And it all looks like it all belongs. This also makes these flowers textural because the paint is kind of globbed on. If you like my tutorials, please give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, and by all means, hit that subscribe button. And if you are already subscribed or you're a new subscriber, if you click on the bell, it'll ask you if you want to be notified of upcoming videos. And if you check yes, you will get notified so you won't miss another video of mine. Once it gets released, you will be notified. I'm just adding a wash of color here to the birdhouse just to make it stand out a little bit more. I've just thinned that brown paint just a little bit more. Doing a little bit of shading in here. Now for a sentiment, I grabbed my short and sweet sentiment pack and I've printed this off onto Avery clear matte labels. And it's just so great. It's just peel and stick. I didn't want the sentiment to be that present. I wanted it there, but I wanted it more muted, which is why I chose the clear peel and stick as opposed to putting it on copy paper where the white would stand out. I'm outlining, I'm shading around the outside edge, edging the page with my General's charcoal pencil. This is the extra soft, and then I'm grabbing the medium or the hard to do just a little bit of sketching around the focal image, just to define things a little bit more. So the extra soft I like for the edge because I love that smudge. And for line work, you want the medium or the soft because it doesn't smudge as much. Then I decided that I'm going to splatter with some gold paint just to finish off this page. This napkin would be perfect to put on a card base as well. So there is the finished page. I'm quite happy with how it had started or how it finished. I started with brown paper that was torn and crumpled that put texture onto the page. I chose to cut out a napkin for the focal image, this birdhouse. I applied a base coat of paint several different colors of blue with the white gesso. Then I added some stenciling for the sun and some stamping with the script stamp to give a little bit of pattern and a little bit of interest to the background. I applied paint to the textured areas from the brown paper, and I love how that looks like branches in the background and just adds that little extra something. I painted over the focal image, paint to get a painterly effect. I added a sentiment to the page from my short and sweet sentiment pack. This one was printed off on the Avery labels. I edged the page with my General's charcoal pencil, and I splattered with gold. Thank you so much. Leave me a comment. Try this technique. Break a blank page with some brown paper, then come onto my Facebook group and show me what you did. Bye for now.